One of the deadliest animals in the Amazon, believe it or not, is a fish. I'm of course talking about the legendary arapaima, which is a huge river monster that lives in the waterways of the Amazon and can grow to be at least 400 pounds. And while it doesn't seem like a fish could present any danger to a person, if you were to encounter one of these beasts while swimming, it could punch you so hard with its face that it could knock the wind out of you and cause you to drown. There is no better example than this than what happened to Jeremy Wade, the famous guy behind the hit TV show River Monsters. He actually claims that one of his closest brushes with death was in the Amazon while trying to net an arapaima in a pond. This fish was not even that big. Wade estimates that the one he was handling only weighed about 80 pounds. But nonetheless, it smacked him square in the chest so hard that he could still feel the impact 6 weeks later. He was actually worried that the hit from the arapaima could have caused damage to his heart, but thankfully he lived to tell the tale. The vampire fish is without a doubt one of the most horrifying creatures not only in the Amazon rainforest, but also in the entire world, or at least in the rivers of the world. This massive fish, properly known as a payara, makes its home in the Amazon basin. And yes, it has vampire teeth that are large enough and sharp enough to seriously do some damage to someone. If, for some ridiculous reason, one of these vampire fish managed to bite you in the neck, you probably wouldn't make it out of the water alive. Even a bite to your wrist or abdomen could prove fatal. The payara can grow to be 35 pounds and 3 feet long. It has powerful, jagged jaws and 2 main teeth that stick out from its lower jaw, which it uses to basically spear its prey. But it has more teeth than that. There are a few smaller fangs in its face that it can use for impaling smaller fish, like Amazon tetras. And if you think any of the photographs you see online of the massive vampire fish are exaggerated, it turns out that their fangs can actually grow to be upwards of 6 inches in length. The photos you've seen are definitely real. Did you know that there is a literal river of boiling water known for scorching the flesh off bones and boiling any animal silly enough to fall in? This sounds like something that would be in a Lord of the Rings movie, but it's absolutely real. There is a very real river of boiling death hidden deep in the Peruvian jungle. The turquoise water inside the river can reach 200 degrees Fahrenheit, which is significantly hotter than your cup of morning coffee. The water also reaches 16 feet deep at points, and the mud on the riverbanks is far too hot to walk on with bare feet. If you were to dip your foot into the boiling river at its hottest point, you would receive third-degree burns in a split second. Animals like frogs and birds that accidentally dunk themselves into the river die pretty much immediately. The eyes are cooked first, so if you see a bird fall in, its eyes will begin to boil out of its head. At this point, you're probably wondering just how a place like this could exist. The truth is that it shouldn't. Boiling rivers should only exist near volcanoes, and yet the nearest active volcano is over 400 miles away from this location. There are no magmatic systems anywhere in the Amazon jungle. The only explanation that makes sense is that a hydrothermal feature is causing the river to reach such temperatures. The water from the river probably seeps deep underground, where it heats up and then resurfaces through faults and cracks. At least, this is according to the research done by Andres Russo from the Southern Methodist University in Texas, who was the first one to find and document the boiling river. So far, it's one of the largest and most mysterious geothermal features anywhere on Earth. The green anaconda is the apex predator of the Amazon jungle. For millions of years, there has been no scarier monster in this region than the snake. The modern anaconda is a living nightmare. These serpents can grow to be roughly 30 feet long and weigh over 400 pounds, and they eat pretty much anything that moves. They spend most of their time swimming leisurely through rivers and waiting for food to get close enough to attack. If you want to know just how dangerous the green anaconda can be for a human, take a look at this story from 2019. As reported by the Daily Mail, a diver who travelled to the Formoso River in Brazil had an extremely close brush with one of these great slithering predators. But he actually went to the Amazon with the intention of swimming with an anaconda. What he probably didn't expect was coming face to face with an anaconda that was at least 23 feet long and weighed 200 pounds. This guy actually managed to get video footage of himself swimming in the river with the snake, while it just kind of slithered around and checked the guy out. Surprisingly, the anaconda seemed more inquisitive than hungry. At the end of the encounter, nobody was eaten. But you can clearly see the size and power of this snake, even while it's just hanging out in the bottom of the river. While it didn't exactly attack the guy, it certainly could have if it wanted to. Luckily for him, the snake was only curious that day. Maybe it was already full. One of the freakiest creatures in the Amazon is not a creature at all, but a fungus. This may sound like the plot from a poorly budgeted horror movie, but there is actually a fungus in the Amazon jungle that can turn an insect into a zombie before it kills them. According to a report from the Daily Mail, this is a real parasite that is destroying colonies of ants in the South American rainforest. The fungus works by latching onto a carpenter ant while it scurries across the forest floor. The fungus then grows inside of the ant, consuming its entire body, draining nutrients, and releasing mind control chemicals that alter its behavior. If you've ever seen the movie The Happening with Mark Wahlberg, it's kind of the same idea, but with insects and fungus. Scary! So, what does this parasitic zombie fungus do? It forces the ant to move around in as many areas as possible. The ant will find fresh leaves, it might climb up a tree and then jump off onto the leaves close to the ground, all in an attempt to spread the parasitic fungus as much as possible. The ant is basically a zombie whose only purpose is to infect the entire jungle. After the ant runs around trying to infect everything, the fungus will then force it to cripple itself, eventually resulting in its death. The spores of the fungus then bloom from the ant's head after it dies. Yeah, that is extremely terrifying, and hopefully no mad scientists try to take the fungus to other places in the world, only for it to leak and spread and cause a real-life zombie apocalypse. There's nothing scarier than rubbing noses with the largest snake on the planet. A man recently came face to face with an anaconda at the bottom of an Amazonian river. But what's really crazy is that Bartolomeo Bove actually went diving with the intention of finding this deadly beast. And boy, did he! He came upon a 23-foot-long green anaconda, estimated to weigh over 200 pounds. Lucky for him, the snake didn't seem very hungry. The diver did manage to capture the entire encounter on video though, and throughout the whole thing, the snake just kind of left him alone. In fact, the anaconda simply seemed inconvenienced by the intrusion. The snake sniffed at the camera and then swam away down the river, leaving Bove alone. But in all honesty, he was very lucky. An anaconda of that size could have easily wrapped its body around the diver and squeezed him so hard that his bones would have snapped like twigs. Then, if the anaconda felt like it, it could have swallowed him whole. Probably the last place you would expect to find a shark is in the Amazon jungle, but there is in fact an extremely dangerous predator lurking in the muddy waters of the Amazon River. And this isn't a baby shark either. It's a bull shark, and it is absolutely enormous. It is considered by many scientists to be the most dangerous shark in the world. Just take a look at this thing. It's huge! It's built heavy, spanning a length of around 7 feet with an average weight of about 500 pounds. It doesn't even seem real that such a huge monster could be swimming in rivers. There have been reports of bull sharks reaching an enormous 13 feet in length. If one of these ferocious fish were ever to get hold of you, it could easily rip you apart with its serrated teeth. In fact, it's being reported that the bull shark has the strongest bite force out of any other shark, chomping down with an incredible 1,300 pounds of pure force. Another unique characteristic about this demon shark is that it can live in both saltwater and freshwater. This is because it has special functions with its kidneys that allow it to perfectly maintain the exact right amount of salt in its blood. The bull shark is also a little different in the way that it doesn't lay eggs. Instead, bull sharks give birth just like mammals do. The typical bull shark will give birth to a pup already 2 feet long at birth. There are lots of scary snakes in the Amazon jungle. Pretty much everywhere you look, there is a snake hidden somewhere in the dense green. And while the anaconda is certainly the biggest and most intimidating, there are actually 9 species of coral snake located throughout Peru and much of the Amazon rainforest that are deadly, awful to look at, and absolutely horrifying. Coral snakes are very distinct. They are yellow, red, and black. They are clearly extremely venomous just by looking at them. Their venom is some of the strongest in the world. A single bite from a coral snake can kill a human in just a few minutes. These snakes can weigh up to 5 pounds and grow to be 3 feet in length. Coral snakes typically eat birds, lizards, and frogs, but they have been known to cannibalize other snakes. And as a side note, it's important to know that when it comes to the red, yellow, and black color scheme, if red touches yellow, the snake is deadly. However, if black touches red, the snake is not deadly. This is always a good thing to know when wandering into the jungle. There is a rhyme that goes, "Red and yellow can kill a fellow. Red and black, friend of Jack." The Brazilian grape tree is one of the freakiest things a person might stumble upon in the Amazon jungle. But wait, how is a tree scary? Well, at first glance, it looks as though the Amazon grape tree is covered in weird parasitic pods, as if it's covered in diseased sores. However, these aren't parasites, and they're also not grapes, despite the tree's name. These are little violet fruits that sprout directly from the tree's trunk. In the plant world, this kind of tree is known as a cauliflory, and the tree's actual name is the jaboticaba tree. The fruit is edible, though you need to bite through the hard skin and suck out the white flesh inside. The jaboticaba fruit is wildly popular in South America, though it's not widely seen in the United States. And even though the tree might look frightening at first, it's actually completely harmless and safe to touch. It's just another freaky thing growing in the Amazon. Have you heard of the Brazilian grape tree before? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. A newly discovered electric eel living in the Amazon basin could be the most dangerous eel ever found. We already know that electric eels live in the Amazon and are very dangerous, but according to a new report from CNN, researchers at Smithsonian's National Museum of Natural History have identified new species of eel that are even more volatile. One of these new species, scientifically named Electrophorus volti, produces more voltage than any other eel known to man. This slithering freak of nature can discharge a maximum of 860 volts of electricity. In comparison, the normal electric eel can only discharge 650 volts. In terms of length, one of these eels can grow to be about 8 feet long. That is larger than any man on Earth. And when it feels threatened or angry, it can use its voltage against you. I'm honestly not sure which creature would be worse to meet in an Amazonian river: an anaconda, a bull shark, or an electric eel. The eel may be smaller, but it can do some serious damage with its electricity, and that could leave you dead in the water, literally. In regards to this newest eel discovery, the research team believe that the 3 species of electric eels all evolved from one common ancestor about 7 million years ago. They also believe that each eel's voltage could have been influenced by the specific conductivity of whichever water they evolved in. Harpy eagles are some of the most violent-looking birds on the planet. The eagles of North America are majestic, and they are certainly deadly, but at least they don't look at all that horrifying. The harpy eagle looks like it's always plotting a gruesome murder. These are the most terrifying birds in the Amazon. They occupy massive territories and feed primarily on medium-sized mammals and other birds. It's the largest raptor in the jungle and one of the biggest eagles on the planet. But despite the harpy eagle's large numbers, they can be difficult to spot. You'll probably never see one, even if you lived in the jungle your whole life. In terms of just how deadly these birds are, they share the very top of the food chain with the 2 other apex predators of the Amazon, the jaguar and the anaconda. The jaguar is the king of the forest floor, the anaconda is the ruler of the swamps, and the harpy eagle dominates the entire canopy of the Amazon rainforest. Their favorite meals consist of sloths and monkeys. The silk henge spider is one of the more curious things found in the Amazon. It's not the most dangerous spider, and it's not the biggest either, but the way that it spins its webs is nothing short of mystifying. The first silk henge crafted by one of these spiders was discovered in Peru in 2013, and they have been perplexing scientists ever since. The spider actually weaves its own henge formation out of silk, creating a tapered central cone and an outer ring of delicate silk pillars that make it seem as though it's crafted its own silky stone henge. The reason behind the spider's behavior is even more fascinating. The spider has somehow figured out how to build a walled fortification around its egg sacs to keep them safe. The spider will keep its eggs at the very center of the structure, while the silk pillars on the outside form a defensive barrier to keep predators out. This is the only spider known in the natural kingdom that exhibits this kind of behavior. And of course, this isn't scary like a monster anaconda trying to eat your legs, but the fact that something like this even exists, and that spiders have figured out how to build their own monoliths out of silk, well, depending on which way you look at it, it's pretty scary. What will they do next? The Amazon pit viper, also known as the bushmaster snake, is the longest venomous snake in South America, according to Britannica. Not only do you need to contend with the man-eating anaconda, but if you take a trip to the Amazon, you also need to look out for the smaller yet highly venomous bushmaster. There are 3 species of bushmaster known to exist from between the Amazon River basin all the way to Costa Rica, and the average is about 6 feet in length, but they can grow to be at least 10 feet. These horrifying snakes are usually reddish-brown to match the forest floor, and they typically have X-shapes or diamonds on their back. The only good news about the Amazon pit viper is that it's hardly ever encountered. It's super dangerous with potentially lethal venom, but you would be very unlucky to run into one. These snakes hunt using infrared pits located between their eyes, which they use to see warm-blooded animals coming near them. These snakes are so patient that a single bushmaster may sit coiled for several weeks at a time waiting for something to come along so it can ambush it. Their favourite ambush spots are fallen tree limbs, perches high up in the branches, or just sitting in the middle of a route that they know is regularly travelled. And you don't need to worry about these monsters starving, as one snake can survive on less than 10 meals a year. They can't eat people, but a single bite in the middle of the jungle would probably be the end of you. Sure, there are plenty of venomous and scary spiders in the Amazon. There's the Goliath bird eater, which is exactly what it sounds like. There's a spider the size of a dog, and there are countless tarantulas. But one of the most overlooked arachnids is the giant fishing spider, which is horrifying in its own way. The spider is huge, growing to be around 1.5 to 4 centimeters, and they eat a diet primarily of fish and other swampy amphibians. You can find these 8-legged freaks waiting by the side of rivers and streams to pounce on unsuspecting prey. They are even able to coat themselves in an air bubble and dive underwater to ambush off-guard fish. The giant fishing spider is able to dive under the water and swim for several minutes at a time until it finds a fish and feels like eating. Imagine going for a dip and coming out with a huge, hairy spider stuck to your chest, and it's holding onto a small fish with its massive fangs. This is a disturbing picture, and not something you want happening. A 6-year-old girl in Brazil recently died after she was surrounded by a hungry group of piranhas and literally eaten by them. According to the BBC, the girl was with her family in a canoe that capsized during a storm. The girl's grandmother managed to get the other children back into the boat, but she didn't reach Adrila Muniz in time. She was tragically lost in the Maicuru River of Brazil. Her body wasn't discovered until after the storm had settled, and when she was finally found, it was clear that piranhas had set upon her with unparalleled hunger. And while she may have been dead before their brazen attack, perhaps from drowning, it is still possible that she had been alive when the savage fish found her. If that were true, it would have made this girl one of the only people to have literally been eaten alive by a gang of vicious piranhas. The girl's body was taken to the local morgue, where a post-mortem revealed that almost all of her flesh had been systematically stripped from her legs, undoubtedly as a result of the piranha's sharp teeth. These are freshwater fish that travel in huge groups and have the ability to consume animals in mere minutes. And while attacks on humans are indeed rare, when they do happen, they tend to be deadly. Bullet ants are arguably one of the deadliest creatures in the Amazon, even if they aren't lethal. Now let me tell you why. First, the bullet ant can't actually kill you with its venom unless you have an allergic reaction. It can, however, give you such an incredibly painful sting that you lose your senses, become absolutely delirious with pain, and die from some other awful circumstance. If you get bitten by a bullet ant, you are basically down for the count for a full 24 hours, and in that time anything can happen to you in the jungle. The venom from the bullet ant causes pain that is very similar to being shot by an actual bullet, and this is clearly where they get their name from. Some people have compared the pain of a bullet ant bite to walking barefoot on hot coals or to having a nail driven into your flesh. The bullet ant has actually been voted as the creature with the most painful bite in the insect world, even worse than the tarantula hawk or the executioner wasp. These ants are found all over the Amazon, and you can usually spot them around the bases of tree trunks. The worker ants are also amongst the largest in the world, growing to be about 1.2 inches in length. A single colony of bullet ants will range somewhere in the hundreds, and because of their serious aggression, if you accidentally stumble into their territory, you could be stung by dozens of these ants in just a few seconds. Another aquatic freak show of the Amazon jungle is the giant Amazonian leech. Scientists believe it is the largest freshwater leech in the world. It can grow to be almost 20 inches in length with an astounding width of almost 4 inches. That means the leech can be half as long as your arm. They live inside the Amazon River, all the way from Venezuela to the Guianas. And while most people think leeches just hang around in the water waiting to eat people, their main diet consists of caimans, massive anacondas, capybaras, and even cows. Leeches are excellent swimmers and will hang out under rocks in the water while they digest whatever meal they ate. They have no problem sucking onto any life form silly enough to get in the water, including you. If you thought getting out of the water with the fishing spider on you was bad, how loud would you scream if this giant leech was on you and sucking your blood? One of the scariest things in the Amazon right now is actually people. Specifically, loggers are some of the most violent, dangerous, and deadly animals currently operating in the Amazon jungle. A prime example of this was just recently when an indigenous Amazon guardian was ambushed by a pack of loggers and shot dead. There were 2 Amazon guardians patrolling the region, trying to keep it safe from loggers. But the loggers knew where they were. One of the guardians was shot in the neck and died bleeding out in the forest, while his colleague was shot in the back but managed to escape. This is actually the same part of the Amazon jungle where a tribe known as the Awa tribe lives. This tribe has no contact with the outside world. At least 3 guardians have been killed lately, as well as their relatives, as loggers push deeper and deeper into illegal logging territory and try to flex their muscle. The Guardians are trying to protect the forest and keep the tribes from being contacted, but it's simply not working. The result is a lawless struggle between illegal loggers and local authorities, with the loggers unfortunately winning. The scariest thing in the Amazon will be when the loggers have cut down the trees and nothing remains of the animal species, except for maybe rats and spiders. When talking about the Amazon, people always think snakes and spiders. But you absolutely cannot forget that scorpions also live in the jungle. And while not every scorpion is poisonous, there is one particular bad guy that can do some serious damage and leave you either dead or in very rough shape. I'm talking about the yellow scorpion, and it's responsible for the most severe accidents with the highest mortality rate. Out of all the 160 scorpion species in Brazil, the yellow scorpion is the most dangerous. It's widely distributed all throughout the country and in the jungle, and if you get stung by this insect, you're going to be in hot water. First comes intense pain at the area where you were stung, and then comes the vomiting, abdominal pain, fever, hypersalivation, and cardiac problems. In a severe case, you can get neurological symptoms, fall into a coma, have convulsions, and in a few rare cases even die. The crummy thing about the yellow scorpion is that it's only around 2.5 inches long, and they can hide pretty much anywhere. Plus, because they are a dirty yellow colour, they are pretty much invisible on the forest floor. You definitely need to be careful where you're putting your hands. As we recently learned from the last two numbers, there are plenty of things in the waters of the Amazon to be scared of. But even before someone arrives in the Amazon jungle, chances are they're already scared of the red-bellied piranha. These fish have one of the most notorious reputations of any animal in the world. But did you know that piranhas are actually important scavengers and a critical part of the Amazon ecosystem? According to the National Zoo, a huge part of their diet consists of fins which they nibble off the larger fish. A typical red-bellied piranha can weigh about 4 pounds and grow to be over 1 foot long, and they travel in large schools. But it's nothing like what you see in the movies. You'll never actually see 500 piranhas devouring a cow in a mad feeding frenzy within just 30 seconds. Usually, there are no more than 20 individual piranhas in a school. They are still vicious predators and they will bite you, but there's absolutely no chance that a small school of 20 piranhas can literally rip the skin from your bones as if you were thrown into a blender. You definitely don't want to be attacked by one, but they aren't quite as horrifying as everyone thinks. There is supposedly a large creature living in the Amazon jungle known as South America's Bigfoot, or by the local people as the Mythical. This beast reportedly has the body of a large bear, the clawed feet of a giant armadillo, the face of either a human or a monkey, and it can roar like crashing thunder. But there are some other accounts that seem a little less believable. Some have claimed that the Mythical is a cyclops from Greek mythology. Some say it has a mouth on its stomach that it uses to eat humans, and other people believe it's a supernatural monster. Either way you look at it, the Amazonian Bigfoot is not something you want to run into. And believe it or not, this beast may actually exist. It probably doesn't have a mouth on its stomach, and it's probably not a cyclops, but it could definitely be one of the last living remnants of a giant ground sloth that lived 8,000 years ago. Giant ground sloths were thought to be extinct. In all likelihood they are, but the one thing that could explain the existence of the Amazonian Bigfoot is that there are a few of them still hanging around, upwards of 7 feet in height, reeking of a garlic-type smell and boasting some impressive claws. Unfortunately, every attempt at apprehending or even documenting the Amazonian Bigfoot has failed, prompting people to compare the Mythical to the Sasquatch and the Yeti as nothing but a myth. You would think that with a name like the Amazon kissing bug, it would be a little less dangerous. But the kissing bug actually gets its name for a rather disturbing reason. This tiny insect transmits a life-threatening disease by kissing you when you're not looking, or even when you are looking. The kissing bug just doesn't care. It carries a very special parasite that can get you sick. These bugs live in the walls and roofs of homes in South America. They also like chicken coops and warehouses, and it doesn't matter if the area is rural or suburban. They hide during the day and become active at night when you're sleeping, and their favourite place to bite is at any exposed skin, primarily the face and around your lips. When you're sleeping, these disgusting little monsters are kissing you without your permission. And as they feast on your lips, they defecate and urinate close to the bite site, and this is how the parasites they carry enter your body. This is especially true when you instinctively rub your face, at which point you rub the urine and feces from the kissing bug all over into your eyes and mouth. The disease these bugs carry is known as the Chagas disease, and the World Health Organization believes that there are between 6 and 7 million people infected, mostly throughout Latin America. Without treatment, this disease can give you cardiac alterations, digestive issues, neurological problems, and can ultimately threaten your life. So, the kissing bug is not dangerous in itself, but it's just like the mosquito in the fact that it will fill you full of horrible diseases. Pit vipers are not friendly. These are snakes that you should 100% be terrified of. They are what nightmares are made of. And while I could go on and on about how the Amazonian lancehead pit viper has venom poisonous enough to kill a person in minutes, let's talk instead about the deadly Snake Island in Brazil, where hordes of lancehead pit vipers have caused the island to be blocked off from any human contact. It's known as Snake Island, and it's located 90 miles from Sao Paulo. According to just about every news source across the world, it is the deadliest island on the planet, and it earns the title because it has the highest concentration of venomous snakes anywhere in the world. On this island, there is an insane amount of golden lancehead vipers, which are one of the most venomous vipers on the planet. But what's crazy about the island of the snakes is that the lancehead vipers that live here are said to have 3 to 5 times stronger venom than those that live on the mainland in the jungle. A single bite can melt human flesh and leads to death within the hour. There are about 4,000 of these snakes on the island, and it's the only place in the world where golden lancehead vipers are found. But of course, there are still normal lancehead vipers on the mainland. Any plant called the corpse flower is obviously going to be pretty scary. The corpse flower is actually one of the biggest and rarest flowering structures on Earth. The flower blooms in the Amazon. It's almost never seen, and it only blooms for a brief period before collapsing. But while it is blooming, the corpse flower emits the rankest and most objectionable odor ever, comparable to rotting meat or a decaying corpse. According to Tim Pollock from the Chicago Botanic Garden, the smell of the flower is meant to attract pollinators so that it can continue to exist. This is similar to how most flowers work. The gross stench, the gothic purple colour, and even its warm temperature are all designed to attract bugs. But not bugs like bees. The corpse flower relies on dung beetles and flesh flies for pollination. These are the insects that eat dead flesh almost exclusively. Because the corpse flower mimics the temperature, smell, and even appearance of a dead animal, the corpse-eating insects are of course drawn to it, and they help to spread pollen throughout the rest of the forest. What's even cooler about the corpse flower is that after it's bloomed and pollination has finished, the flower collapses in a soggy mass of grossness. This is especially gross considering the plant can be up to 15 feet tall, with leaves as wide as 13 feet. The black caiman is the biggest member of the alligator family. It is also the largest predator in the Amazon River basin. The average male black caiman can grow to be a maximum of about 16 feet in length, which is even larger than the bull shark. Of course, and humans. Is the caiman dangerous to humans? The answer is absolutely yes. The black caiman gets its name because of its dark, scaly hide, and it camouflages excellently on the sides of rivers and other bodies of water. This means that if you get too close, you might not even know until it's too late and one of these huge monsters bites down on your leg and gives you the old death roll. In the jungle, the only predator that threatens the black caiman is the green anaconda. People nearly hunted the black caiman to extinction because its unique hide is so valuable. But now, this dangerous reptile is making a comeback. These aren't your normal cute little piggies. Feral pigs are dangerous and should be considered scary by everyone. What's really interesting about feral pigs, also known as javelinas or peccary, is that they live all the way from Arizona to the jungles of the Amazon. You can find them in the jungle, you can find them in Texas, and you can find them all throughout Central America as well. And even though these are a type of pig, they don't look or behave like the pigs you might be thinking of. A perfect example of this is when a man and his dog were attacked by a pack of feral pigs in Arizona. It happened at the top of a mountain, and according to the Phoenix Fire Department, the hiker was forced to call 911 after the feral pigs came out of nowhere and basically tried to eat the man and his dog for breakfast. Sounds more like a pack of hungry wolves than pigs. And even though these feral monsters can be found in Arizona, they do stem from South America. They have very slowly made their way north and are now prevalent throughout most of the Americas. Fun fact, these feral pigs are most closely related to hippopotamuses. Jaguars are the biggest and deadliest cats in the Amazon jungle, and the third largest cat in the world, next to lions and tigers. It has a bite that can crush a human skull. But oddly enough, jaguars aren't that dangerous to humans. They're definitely scary, and you certainly wouldn't want to meet one on a dark night in the Amazon jungle. but they don't have an overly dramatic history of attacking people. Jaguars and pumas are the only two big cats in the Americas, with jaguars secluded inside the Amazon jungle, primarily in the wetlands of Brazil, Paraguay, and Bolivia. The first documented case of a man being killed by a jaguar came in 2008, when a 21-year-old fisherman was attacked in a remote area at around 7:30 p.m. at night while on the banks of the Paraguay River. The victim had been inside his tent when the jaguar entered and proceeded to bite the guy's head. His body was dragged quite a ways into the woods and later recovered by some local friends of the fisherman. The body was discovered with fractures, dislocations, and he had suffered a severe spinal cord injury, all according to the medical case report. However, this incident was extremely rare. A case like this has never before been documented, though there have been more minor attacks. At the end of the day, a jaguar is definitely the scariest cat in the Amazon, but it's probably not going to eat your brains. The last dangerous creature on this list is arguably the most frightening. It's definitely deadly, the things it does are absolutely horrifying, and I would much rather face off against a giant black caiman than meet a botfly. The botfly is not dangerous on its own, but under the right circumstances the botfly is like something out of a horror movie. Let's start by saying the botfly looks like an ordinary housefly, but it differs in a big way. When the female botfly needs to reproduce, she will catch a mosquito or another type of flying insect and then attach somewhere around 30 eggs underneath the insect's wings. The small mosquito is released and later lands on a larger animal. It begins to feed on the blood, and the body heat induces the botfly eggs to hatch. The newly born botfly larvae then move across the same animal that the mosquito is feeding on, and they too begin to feed. If you're with me so far, you might see where this is going. Larvae are basically maggots, and now that the botfly larvae are feeding on a large animal, they will begin to burrow into the flesh of the host. In essence, the botfly larvae can burrow into an unsuspecting person's body at any place where a mosquito bites, and then they grow inside of you, feasting on your flesh until such a time that they decide to leave. But more often than not, they don't want to leave you, and you have to try to get the botfly maggots out of your flesh, which is quite a bit harder than you might think considering how deep they burrow inside of you. The reason this is deadly is because the maggots can carry all kinds of really horrible diseases, and obviously since it's inside your flesh, it will pass these diseases onto you. Also keep in mind that botflies can lay eggs on sweaty clothing. Put on the sweaty shirt you left out the night before and go to bed later with 30 botflies burrowed into your flesh. The scariest animal by far in the Amazon is the vampire bat. Not only because these bats turn into actual vampires and suck people's blood at night, but because under the right circumstances, vampire bats from the Amazon, specifically from Brazil, could unleash extremely deadly diseases across the globe. A new study has shown that feral pigs, the kind we just spoke about in the last story, have increased in population 5 times since 2007. The population explosion of the pigs has led to a population explosion of vampire bats. More blood to drink, more bats to drink it. This has pushed the possibility of a new infectious disease being born through the vampire bats to a staggering level. This study was published in the journal Frontiers in Ecology and the Environment, and it's a harsh warning. With an exponentially increasing population of vampire bats, the most disease-ridden animals on the planet, there's more possibility that they spread disease to livestock, humans, and even the globe. The sawfish is one of the least suspected bad guys of the Amazon jungle. These fish live in large rivers throughout the jungles of South America, and they are actually relatives of the great white shark. As you can imagine, the sawfish gets its name because of its snout, which is designed kind of like a handsaw. The snout actually makes up roughly 30% of its body, and yes, it is as sharp as it looks. When the sawfish defends itself, it will swipe its nose left and right, like someone flinging a sword back and forth in front of them. They also do this while swimming around, as there are tiny pores on the sawfish's nose that help it to detect electrical currents emanating from small fish and crustaceans that it likes to eat. And when it comes to scary and surprising animals that pose a threat to humans, the sawfish is definitely up there. There haven't been many accounts of a human being purposely attacked by one of these fish in the Amazon, as sawfish generally prefer to keep to themselves. However, their nose saws are formidable weapons. If one were to swipe its nose at your leg, it could slice your Achilles tendon and leave you crippled for the rest of your life. Do you still want to visit the Amazon jungle knowing the kinds of things that are lurking there? Let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and come back again soon for another awesome video.